Let's check out how the part-time four-wheel drive of the all-new Thar works. We'll cover topics like two-wheel drive high range, four-wheel drive high range, four-wheel drive low range, open differential, locking differential, the wind-up phenomenon, transfer case, torque distribution, torque multiplication, crawl ratios, front axle disconnect, and brake locking differential. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll better understand and have the knowledge you need to confidently venture off-road in your all-new Thar. Let's take a quick glance at the Thar's mechanicals. That's the longitudinally mounted engine of the all-new Thar. That's the transmission, the transfer case, and those are the front and the rear propeller shafts. Now let's go underneath and play around with the tough mechanicals that the Thar is made up of. Let's start off with part-time four-wheel drive. Part-time simply means that the vehicle's engine typically drives two wheels most of the time. It can be switched to four-wheel drive for greater traction part of the time. This switch is decided by the driver and operated using the four-wheel drive shift lever. Thar's part-time four-wheel drive has a two-wheel drive high gear, four-wheel drive high gear, and four-wheel drive low gear options. Let's start with the fundamentals. Thar's engine produces torque. Well, that's rotational force. This is coupled to a transmission. The transmission's role is to alter the speed and torque. The transfer case is coupled to the transmission. The transfer case's role is to alter and split the torque and send it to the rear and front axles via propeller shafts. The open tap differential or diff then transmits this torque to the wheels via the axles, one on each side of the differential. The Thar, being a four-wheel drive vehicle, has two differentials, one at the front and one at the rear. The differential gets its name as it allows torque to be transmitted to the wheels even if the wheels spin at different speeds. Say a vehicle is turning to the right. The outside left wheels cover more distance and spin faster than the inside right wheels, which cover less distance and spin slower. The beauty with the differential is that it does this automatically and with no driver input. The Thar's transfer case has two major functions. The first function is to multiply the torque through lower gears, that is low range gearing, and the second function is to split the torque equally between the front and rear axles. The Thar's four-wheel drive system, either in four-wheel drive high or four-wheel drive low, will distribute the torque equally to the front and rear differentials and does this by locking the front and the rear drive shafts together. So say your Thar is in too high or high range two-wheel drive. 100% of the engine torque via the transmission is sent to the rear drive shaft, which in turn provides torque to the rear differential. In an ideal case, the differential will split the torque 50-50% equally to each wheel via the axles. In reality, however, the differential will split the torque down the path of least resistance. For example, if one wheel is in the air and has no traction, all the torque will be sent to this wheel as it has the least resistance. This is a big shortcoming of an open differential. Thar will never leave you high and dry under these difficult situations. Thar's rear axle is fitted with an automatically locking differential. As soon as the Thar's locking differential sees that one wheel is spinning and lost traction, it quickly locks both the wheels together and torque is sent to both wheels. What's amazing is, Thar gets you out of the most difficult terrains and situations. Thar is also fitted with an advanced traction control system called brake locking differential to help overcome the shortcomings with open differentials. We'll discuss more of this later. Now moving on to 4H or high range four-wheel drive. In the Thar, if four-wheel drive and 4H are selected, the transfer case locks the rear drive shaft to the front drive shaft. This provides an equal 50-50% split in torque between the front and rear axles. This is great for off-roading as now the front differential and therefore front wheels also receive torque along with the rear. However, in high traction surfaces like tar roads, this is problematic. If a vehicle is turning to the right, not only are the left outside wheels rotating faster than the inside wheels, but also the front wheels rotate at different speeds than the rear wheels. Hence, this leads to wind up in the drivetrain. This is why the Thar should only be driven in too high on high traction surfaces like tar roads and hard surfaced roads. If the Thar is driven in 4 high or 4 low mode, the front drive shafts will want to rotate at a different speed, but it can't because they are locked together. This phenomenon is called wind up, essentially a twisting force known as torsion, which stores energy in the drive shafts. This energy has to be released, otherwise it will eventually damage the drivetrain. In low traction surfaces like gravel, this release of energy can cause the front or rear wheels to skip or skid, and this is perfectly okay and desirable. Now let's check out 4L or low range of the Thar. It is important to note that 4L does not change the torque distribution at all. It will not overcome shortcomings with open differentials either. 4L, however, will multiply the torque coming out of the transmission. This is the second role of the transfer case in part-time four-wheel drive of the Thar. When 4L is engaged in the Thar, a different gear set consisting of lower gears is used. By nature of gears, low gears have low speeds corresponding to higher torque or torque multiplication. This low-range gearing is known as the transfer ratio and is 1:2.48. Therefore, for every 2.48 turns of the transmission, the drive shafts will rotate only once. By comparison, in 2 high or 4 high, for every 2.48 turns of the transmission, the drive shaft will also rotate 2.48 times. In 4L, the transmission torque is multiplied by the transfer ratio. So in the case of Thar, by 2.48. So what does this mean? In first gear, with the engine at 2000 rpm, the vehicle speed in 4H will be 17 kmph, but in 4L will be 7 kmph on 16-inch tires. This lower speed, however, corresponds to higher torque at the wheels. 4L has its real advantages where slow speed and high torque is required. For example, steep hill climbs, hill descents, river crossings, slippery terrain like mud, snow or sand. Because of this high torque, the vehicle's engine and transmission don't have to work as hard, reducing the likeliness of the engine and transmission from overheating or stalling. Now another term associated with 4L is the crawl ratio. The crawl ratio is simply the multiplication of the first gear ratio, the final drive ratio and the transfer ratio. In the Thar, the crawl ratio is 1:38 for the automatic. The manual transmission Thar has a crawl ratio of 1:42. The higher the crawl ratio, the lower the rotation speed of the wheels, yet higher torque provided at the wheels. Say an engine produces 300 Nm of torque at 2000 rpm. Multiplying this by the crawl ratio gives 12,600 Nm. In ideal circumstances, whether the torque is split evenly to all four wheels, we get 3150 Nm at each wheel. By comparison, in 4H, we only get 1278 Nm. That is 2.48 times less. You may say this is a lot of torque, which it is. But once you factor in large diameter four-wheel drive wheels, working on demanding terrain or say hauling a heavy vehicle, you need as much torque as possible. Let's take a step back and look at the front axle disconnect. The front axle disconnect is used to engage or disengage the transmitted torque from the differential to the wheel and is used in the front axle of the Thar. In 2H, the torque is sent to the rear. However, in 2H, as the vehicle moves, so do the front wheels and therefore so do the axles, differential and front propeller shaft, even though the front drive shaft is not actually connected at the transfer case. These additional rotating parts add rolling resistance to the vehicle and therefore more fuel is consumed and components will wear unnecessarily. To prevent this, in Thar, a front axle disconnect is used to physically disengage the rotating motion from the wheel to the differential. When 4H or 4L are selected, the front axle disconnect connects back the axle shaft to the differential. Another feature in the Thar is brake locking differential or the BLD or simply brake traction control. The Thar, using wheel sensors and clever electronics, if one or more wheels spin at different rate than the others, thus receiving more or all of the torque, the computer will apply brakes to the spinning wheels. This increases the resistance on the wheel and hence the differential will start to spread the torque to the opposing wheel. So next time you drive a Thar, you are better equipped with the knowledge of how it works and what to expect. I hope you found this video informative and it equips you with the knowledge you need to understand your Thar and prepare you for your next off-road adventure.